Lamar Soutter. With me today is Vox Publius, and welcome to Overtime. This week in the news, 2020 was declared officially as the deadliest year in U.S. history, at least since we've been keeping records, which started in 1900 even. It was over 18% deadlier than projected based on numbers from previous years, and this is due, obviously, in large part to 378,292 recorded COVID deaths in the year 2020. Keep in mind that while now COVID has jumped to the third highest leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer for Americans, but the total number of deaths now exceeds 530,000, over 500,000 deaths since the pandemic started, but that number is probably rather low. The reason being that we didn't always test deaths. We still don't test every death, and sometimes there are COVID-related deaths that go under the radar, and there was an underreporting for any number of reasons since the pandemic started. Other estimates have been much higher, but they are, of course, just estimates as opposed to the official count. Meanwhile, today, we have reached a milestone. 10%, a full 10% of the U.S. population is now considered fully vaccinated against the standard strains of COVID-19, according to the CDC, with an average of about 2.2 million doses of the vaccine being administered every single day. Meanwhile, the FBI has confirmed that an associate at the White House a Trump associate at the White House was in contact with the Proud Boys days before the Capitol Hill riot. We do not know, or at least the FBI has not released, who that person is. We do know that Federico Klein, a former State Department aide, is the first person who was appointed, a first appointee by Donald Trump, to be charged with crimes in relation to the Capitol Hill riots. Klein is shown in a video. Klein denied, he admitted to being present, but denied actually entering the state capitol or inciting any kind of violence or insurrection. However, video has shown Klein jamming a riot shield into doors in order to keep them open as the Capitol Police were attempting to close them and secure the doors against the mob. Klein can also be heard on video encouraging the mob to clash with police. Also, Robert Minuta, a New York man who has been tied to Roger Stone, and in fact is on video with Stone on January 6th outside of a Washington, D.C. hotel. He is wearing a Oath Keeper military vest. It's got the Oath Keeper emblem on it. He has been arrested and also charged with participating in the Capitol Hill riot. He purportedly had taunted U.S. Capitol Police officials and, broke into the Capitol and has been charged with obstruction of Congress and unlawful entry. The FBI has also released footage of the man who planted the bombs in Washington, D.C. in an attempt to elicit help from the public to see if he can be identified. Meanwhile, Florida's latest resident has requested for the upcoming Florida election a mail-in ballot. Yes, Donald Trump is going to be voting by mail in the Florida election. New York Governor Cuomo, once a hero in New York for his handling of the crisis and for his fierce advocacy for the members of his state, is now facing multiple political crises, but in the largest of them is numerous allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment. According to the New York State Police, as of today, they believe this has risen to the level of a crime. An unidentified aide has accused Cuomo of groping her at the governor's mansion last year. This makes the sixth serious allegation of improper touching or workplace conversations that has been levied against him in recent weeks. Today, the New York State Assembly authorized an investigation of these charges as the first step of impeachment charges against the governor. If the impeachment begins, the Democratic Majority Leader, Andrea Cousins, I think it is, would preside over the trial. She has joined a choir of senators, including a number of Democrats, who have called for Cuomo to resign. Meanwhile, Arkansas Governor Hutchinson has signed into law a bill which bans nearly all abortions across the state. However, this bill was, when it passed, much like the gay marriage ban in California, known to not be able to pass legal muster based on the laws as they are today. It was written with the deliberate purpose of forcing the issue at the United States Supreme Court. Arkansas is at least one of 14 states proposing significant bans on abortion, and they are hoping to revisit Roe v. Wade now that there is a conservative stack on the U.S. Supreme Court. The ACLU has been representing Planned Parenthood, and they have challenged the law in court. Meanwhile, a Texas lawmaker has gone a step further and introduced a bill which would ban abortion without any exceptions, even for rape or incest, only for if the life of both the mother and the child are in jeopardy and that both are going to die, then you can do the abortion. Here's the interesting caveat. It would be classified as, it would be criminalized and classified as murder, meaning that any doctor or patient engaged in abortion would, wait for it, be punishable by death. A new bill in Tennessee would make it such that obstructing a highway in any sort of formal protest has been moved from a Class B or Class C misdemeanor into a full Class E felony with a mandatory fine of up to $300,000 and up to 6 years in prison just for obstructing a highway as a form of protest. It also grants immunity to drivers who, quote, unintentionally kill or injure someone who is blocking the highway, begging the question, how on earth do we know what was intentional or not? Nonetheless, Kentucky has proposed a bill making it illegal to taunt or insult a police officer. That bill would fine any person convicted of insulting a police officer, would make it such that they are disqualified for public assistance for 3 months, face up to 3 months in jail, and a $250 fine. As Arizona is now also considering restricting voting in an effort to improve, quote, the quality, close quote, of their voters. Meanwhile, the Equal Rights Amendment, which was originally proposed and passed in 1972, passed overwhelmingly in both chambers of Congress and signed by President Richard Nixon, proposed amending the Constitution to bar any denial or abridgment of civil rights based on sex. Article 5 of the Constitution says that once it is approved by Congress, and I think I misspoke, I don't think Nixon signed it, he endorsed it. Once it is approved by Congress, the amendment needs to be ratified by 3/4 of the state in order for it to officially become a new amendment to the Constitution. We have for, I think it's about 10 years, been one state short of that until January of last year when Virginia finally ratified the amendment. However, a federal judge has now ruled that it is too late. While Virginia, Nevada, and Illinois have in fact argued that Congress does not have the power to set a time limit on ratification, the original proposal did in fact grant only 7 years for ratification. So this judge has making it clear that they are not opining on the importance of or the merits of the law itself. The ratification has exceeded that time, and it cannot be ratified and cannot become a new amendment to the Constitution. This too will likely head to the Supreme Court, and if that is upheld, that will be almost certainly the end of the Equal Rights Amendment. Lastly, I think it should be noted this most important of news elements. Matthew McConaughey has reportedly opened a bid for the next governor to become the next governor of Texas, and that is this week in the news. So as I think I may have missed earlier, with me today is Vox Publius. Vox, how are you? I am doing very well, thank you. So I think first and foremost, the most important bit of analysis, Matthew McConaughey. Oh, geez. Oh, that was good. That was good. Well, if Jesse Ventura was good, I thought so. But I mean, he's going to be better than anybody. A plant is better than Rick Perry. That's a really good. I don't. Yeah. That's all right. Now hold on 1 second. It looks like your sound is not getting through. So let me correct that. Um, oh dear Lord, Vox was making some really spectacular points too, and for whatever reason, her sound now it's coming through to me. I can hear you, but it's not going through onto the other side. So I think that's just because, and actually, you know what it is? It's probably the bridge is down. But rather than bother to fix that, I'm just going to make sure that you are being. Let's see. Could I just get a sound check from you? Just check 1 2. There you are. There we go. So we put you. Okay, that should correct it. So yeah.
Audience,
All
can
right.
you hear me? Can you hear me?
So we'll see if they can hear you now. They should be able to. So Vox was saying that who wouldn't vote for Matthew McConaughey? He's basically Texas's sort of like biggest export. And I have to admit, I kind of thought of it as rather silly, but I think you've got a really good point. Actually, I can see Texans actually really getting behind him, which is um,
Wait a second. Did they not hear the? All right, all right, all right?
you sounded
Did they
exact.
miss
They
that
did not.
too?
They missed it. They missed it. But I think they've got you
I
now.
watched. Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you what. Being all over the place as I am, I've been able to pick up a lot of accents. Now, I've got I've got a quirky sense of humor. So I always said, being a transgender woman is difficult as it is, and if you can't laugh at yourself, what are you going to do? So I always just thought I would start a country band, call it Dude Looks Like a Lady, and, sing in a deep baritone voice. And I'd do it in a sundress with a sports bra on, right? Or a push-up bra on or something like that. And in the process of learning how to sound a little bit more like a Southerner, I found like this tutorial on how to do Matthew McConaughey. So apparently what you do is first, you got to breathe. You got to be really breathy. Right? And then you got to slow down what you say. And then you just got to kind of let it go. All right. All right. All right.
Nice.
Putting against Matthew McConaughey would be like going against Troy Aiken or Emmett Smith. Right? There's very few things that are just pure Texas. That's oil, the Cowboys, and Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
Who, by the way, lives in New Jersey. Or at least he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah. You've got an echo. I'm sorry.
Apparently, we now have echo.
Yeah, and I understand why, and that now should be accounted for. So I was wrapping up the fix on the sound. I'd done an ugly patch, and now the sound should be fully corrected. So having gotten all the fun stuff out of the way, let's see. We started on the rundown with well, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? We have COVID. We have very.
Yeah, well, so I'm glad to see. So my wife received her first COVID vaccine this week. She's an essential worker. I am not. So she received hers. She received the Pfizer vaccine. She had no reaction to it whatsoever. She had no pain. Nothing. She She was perfect with it. So we were in and out of there. It was fantastic. They made her wait for a couple of minutes, and so she, along with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, have now been vaccinated with their first shot. We are steadily moving on, so it's good to see that Biden moved very, very quickly to address, at least as far as I can tell, some really big gaps in the administration of the COVID vaccine. I think had things continued as they were, we would have bungled the vaccine. It's the saying that I'm still echoing. Okay. Yeah, so the rollout seems to be going very, very smooth, which is good, and I'm happy about that. And I just did something, and that might, I don't know, that might have helped it a little bit. With all the vaccinated people plus the the number of people who have been sick, right, we're reaching a point where I do think in the next, say, month or so, we'll reach a point where greater than 50% of the country, right, has either had the first of the 2 shots, in addition to all the people that have had the disease, where we can start to think about, returning to a sense of normalcy, as opposed to the great state of Texas, whose governor, came out and basically, do you remember, have you ever seen the first Shrek by chance?
Yes, I have. I've seen them all. I mean, I have kids, so.
Okay, so the first Shrek, right, Shrek gets run out of his swamp by Donkey, right? And he makes his way to Lord Farquaad's castle. And then in the castle they're having a duel, so to speak. And here comes Lord Farquaad, and he comes up and he says, "Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make." And that's basically what Greg Abbott, said to Texas. He said, some of you may die, but it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. With the understanding that I will have no possibility of getting this because I will be taken care of as governor, but you people may die, and that's okay with me, so long as the economy of Texas keeps on producing lots of carbon for the world to continue to heat up with, right? I think we're at the point where we can start to breathe a sigh of relief. Moving on to the stimulus bill that Joe Biden signed.
Yes, and had a talk about today. Yeah.
Law. $1.9 trillion, and to give a comparison and a breakdown, the bill that occurred in March, exactly 1 year prior to this, was $1.7 trillion. The bill in 2020, the bill in December of 2020 was $915 billion. So we have now spent roughly $5 trillion on stimulus, thus proving, by the way, that the debt and our ability to deficit spend and the need to pull things back in is a myth.
Yeah, I knew you were going there. Okay, yep. We'll have that discussion.
So, $1,400 stimulus checks per person, directly cutting off at, I think, 80,000 and 150,000 respectively. $176 billion for education, $194 billion for grants for childcare providers, $105 billion for healthcare, including COBRA subsidies, $360 billion to state and local government, $16 billion for the agricultural industry. So it's a good bill, $56 billion for transportation, and there's some really cool stuff stuck in this bill. For instance, we will have a basic income for the next year. Starting in July, tucked into this bill is the increase of the child care tax credit at $3,600 and $3,000 respectively, depending on the age of your child, under the age of 17. And the bill states that instead of having this occur at the end of the year in your taxes, starting in July, you will receive a direct payment into your bank account if you make less than the means tested amount. So if you qualify for these things, they'll be just deposited every month into your bank account that you have been receiving your stimulus money in for 1 year. So it's a 1-year trial run on a basic income. This is believed to be an opportunity to show that just directly depositing money into people's accounts does a really cool thing. It helps alleviate child poverty. And that's precisely what it should do. So it's a case study in basic income. Now, it's not a case study in universal basic income, but it is a case study in basic income because it's enough to really make a difference in a lot of people's lives. So that's in there. Other things that are in there, going back to what I said, the deficit's a myth for a moment. Tucked in here was $60 billion in tax increases on the wealthiest among us and corporations. Now, why is that interesting? It's interesting because, first of all, they had to do it in order to get it through the budget reconciliation process, right? The other thing is while it's a small amount, it adds up to, over a 10-year period, which is generally how we do these things, $600 billion. And that $600 billion in revenue is enough to offset any inflation worries that were caused by the passages of the previous two bills plus this one. So it checks that inflation. And what it does is it takes money from sort of arcane type things, right? Like it doesn't directly raise a corporate tax rate. It's just funds from certain small areas, like eliminating certain deductions for corporations and things like that. And so it is, as is being laid out, probably the most progressive piece of legislation that we have passed in a very, very long time. And so I'm very pleased with it. And of course, everything just gets ridiculously more difficult from here because we can only use budget reconciliation one time a year. So that was it. This was our one thing. So everything else now has to go through cloture, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that we got to get rid of the filibuster or be able to find 10 Republican votes in order for cloture to occur. Now, Joe Manchin has said that he is completely opposed to eliminating the filibuster, but he did leave some wiggle room when he said he thinks it should be more painful to use it. And so that sounds like he'd be willing to alter the way in which the filibuster works. But Joe Manchin is all about bipartisanship. I don't know what goes on in his head. He's using his veto power in a 50-50 Senate, I think a little bit too literally right now. That's just me. I think that they should go ahead and pass DC statehood to get 2 more senators in there, and then, we wouldn't have to worry so much about that. But that's neither here nor there. So that's the stimulus bill. And then, of course, there is the Equal Rights Amendment. So I wanted to read the Equal Rights Amendment real quick, because it's a very scary amendment. All right, it's an incredibly scary amendment.
This is the 1978 version.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So this is what the resolution reads: equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article, This amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification. So, equal rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Very, very dangerous wording here, because what this does is this affirms that regardless of whether or not you are born man or woman, or, thanks to Neil Gorsuch, identify as male or female, such that that identification is integral to your presentation of your outward sex, no state can deny you equal protection under the law. Oh my goodness.
So how do we
United
stop
States,
such a dangerous? I can see why so many states oppose it. Actually, it did get ratification by 3/4 finally after 40 years. So yeah, so yeah, it sounds very dangerous. It does, yes.
It really does. Those pesky women with their notions of wanting to, stand up and be equal and not be satisfied with just sewing bits and working in a kitchen, whatever will we do? No, in all seriousness, though, there are good arguments, I think, on both sides of this particular amendment when you get through the outer shell of bullshit that is most modern conservatives. I think there are valid legal points that are made by some conservative legal minds. I think there are valid points made by liberal legal minds. And I think there are social cues, social points that are made on both sides that are also equally relevant as to how this bill or this amendment would take shape. But at the end of the day, I do believe that while I can understand that this might be embarrassing for certain people, right, who feel that the 14th Amendment is enough for them, right, the idea that we should not in one resounding voice stand up and say once and for all that all people are equal under the law is the thing I'm okay with doing, in the same way that I'm okay with passing the Equality Act, which stands up and says that the 14th Amendment does apply to all. And we want to do this so that we have multiple layers of protection. So if you peel back one, we have this. Right. So if for some reason in the future Congress is able to repeal the Equality Act or do something with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, well, here's the Equal Rights Amendment, right? And so that's kind of that's kind of where we're at with that. And so I am really excited to see how the courts rule on the applicability. I do think that a plain text ruling of the Constitution states that regardless of what was written in the amendment as to the ratification process, that the amendment has gone through the constitutional process of ratification and then therefore should be put into the Constitution. And I am, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say this, which is so far, you have been better at. There are a lot of things you're good at. You have been better at predicting what the Supreme Court is going to do, down to who's going to assent and who's going to be the dissent. And it's just than anybody I have ever met, which includes my father, who actually was before the Supreme Court briefly. So, but as a lawyer, not as a litigant, just FYI. At any rate, so let me ask you this. Where I know it's tough because there's a lot of new members. What do you think is going to happen with this?
So, I don't have a read on Barrett. I don't. I think again, Thomas will dissent. Who's the other knucklehead? The Alito. Did Alito be the other knucklehead?
Yeah, he's been getting hard to predict though. But yeah.
So Thomas and the other conservative firebrand will descend, obviously. I think Gorsuch would be open to a plain text reading of the Constitution here, regardless of what is in the bill itself, which sets out the way in which constitutional amendments take place, which is an amendment is brought up and is passed in a certain way. And so I think he would be open to that. I think Roberts would be open to that. Obviously, the three liberal justices are going to be okay with it. So really, I think Gorsuch and I think Roberts would be okay with this. And what I would expect is that there would be a sense in which they do not want to reject this bill. They would not want to upset common amendment process. But what I think is that whoever is willing to cross the bridge first will give cover for the other ones that are kind of iffy on the fence to sit back and vote no. So I would imagine this will end up being a 5-4 split. And so I would imagine Thomas, Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Alito in the negative, and Gorsuch, Roberts, and the three liberal justices in the positive for a 5-4 ruling, allowing it to become law. Now, having said that, a lot of that's going to depend on how it works its way through the process, because this isn't just something that's going to go straight from this federal court judge's ruling to the Supreme Court instantaneously, right? It's going to have to work its way through, and what I would imagine is that an appellate court will overturn this person's decision, and then we'll have to see whether or not the Supreme Court is willing to take up the appellate court's ruling.
All right, makes sense. Well, thank you very much. It is now on record in perpetuity. We're gonna have, we're gonna be able to look back on this in a year and say, oh, I'm betting we're gonna say Vox got it right, but if she got it wrong, believe me, I'm gonna make fun of her. All right. So, moving on, and I won't go there. I was going to make another joke, but I want
to address something that I saw in the chat just real quick. So, a person in the chat, Bragwin, am I pronouncing that right? Bregwin states that this bill automatically strips rights from intersex people. In no way, shape, or form does this bill strip any rights away from intersex people of any kind. You cannot strip rights away from somebody in a bill that adds just a further layer of protection to people. You cannot now, if this bill passes, deny people equal protection on account of sex. And intersex people, by the very definition, are people who would be denied access based on sex. And of course, we now have the Gorsuch ruling, which states that we can now apply this particular standard where if it is the case that you would have treated them differently if they were presenting in a way that is normalized to their sex, and you would discriminate them in the opposite, you are in fact discriminating against them based on sex.
And this bill doesn't affirm a binary sex either. So it just says on the basis of sex. So it doesn't matter what the sex is. You cannot discriminate based on sex. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
All right. So moving on. Let's see. So we've got still Cuomo.
So let's talk about Cuomo for a moment. So I'm not a fan of Cuomo, and I never have been a fan of Cuomo, right? I think Cuomo is a relic of an era of New York politics that is the same type of politics that produced Rudy Giuliani. It is a type of politics that is mean. It is a type of politics that is dirty. It is a type of politics that is corrupt. It is, hearkening to Tammany Hall in a lot of ways. Cuomo has never shied away from exacting retribution on both sides of the aisle, Republicans, but Democrats in his own party who he feels has slighted him. He has made it difficult for progressives who are trying to reshape the conversation, and he has made it difficult for the very important minority of conservatives in New York in order to voice their opinions. Right? Here's the thing: when you totally silence the opposition, then you end up just with crap everywhere, right? And that's kind of what we've got. We're supposed to have a system in which liberals try to push the country forward, and conservatives kind of act like brakes, right? So we don't want to careen off the cliff. So every now and then the conservatives will hit the brakes on the liberals and say, "Whoa!" Right? And that's what liberals are supposed to do. That's what conservatives are supposed to do. Cuomo, the way Cuomo has done things, he's made it very difficult for conservatives in New York, of which there are a considerable portion once you get out of New York City, right? To have any kind of real adequate representation in the state government. And that's never a good thing. It's not a good thing when Republicans do it. It's not a good thing when Democrats do it. And it's difficult to argue that Democrats hold the moral high ground on all this gerrymandering stuff in North Carolina and Georgia and Oklahoma and Nebraska, when we're doing the same thing in New Jersey and New York. So, having said that, I think he should resign. And let me tell you why I think he should resign. And let me say that I don't think me thinking he should resign is cancel culture, right?
Okay.
I think that a governor or a president is only as effective a leader as our confidence in them allows them to be. He has lost the confidence of the people, and he's lost the confidence of the people in a way that was completely avoidable, right? He did the exact same thing that Donald Trump did. And if I thought Donald Trump should resign from the presidency of the United States or be impeached for hiding necessary information from the American people during a pandemic, then I have to hold Andrew Cuomo to the same standard. He hid intentionally information from the people of New York and the United States of America. He made some bad decisions. If he had come out and said, "Look, we fucked up," we could have chastised him and at the same time held him up. Look, he's human and he made a mistake. But when you tie in all the sexual discrimination stuff, which I think I'm never a big fan of doing sexual discrimination stuff in the media. I don't like public trials about that kind of stuff in the media, right? Because at this point, if you're going to accuse him of a crime, charge him, investigate it, have a trial. I really don't like this trial by media stuff that we do. It's distracting. It's, to me, highly unethical. And it does have the capacity to destroy innocent people's lives on both sides. So I'm not a big fan of that. But he lied. And sometimes our leaders should lie. But not about this. This wasn't a lie that was done in order to, safeguard us from some kind of information that could put army lives in jeopardy overseas. This wasn't a lie that was told to us to prevent a mass panic or anything like this. This was a lie told because they made a decision that cost the lives of people and they didn't want to own up to it. So Andrew Cuomo, you should resign.
I think those are spectacular points, and I caught myself doing the same thing where I realized I'd have been much more upset about Cuomo lying about also it turns out it appears his administration altered the number of dead in nursing homes and downplayed it. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know, man. I can sort of see it's just like, wait a minute, if that had been Trump, I'd have wanted him hoist by
If
his.
that had been Trump, we would have done breaking news. We would have been putting announcements all over the place. We would have been streaming to Twitter. Look at Trump. He's hiding the numbers. Yep. The numbers is all the Democrats. It's the Democrats' fault. The numbers, they're fake. It's fake. No, they're not fake. And you lied to us.
No, I think that's a spectacular point. I think
the other thing is that we have just gone through 4 years of a president who lied like Nixon, lied like Lyndon Johnson, right? And this needs to be a sign. This needs to be a time of healing, right? I don't expect Republican politicians to aid in the healing of this country after Donald Trump. I don't. They have proven themselves primarily to be cowards. There were 7 senators and like 10 congressmen who, from the Republican Party, showed themselves to be patriot. The rest of them, all cowards. Right, so I don't expect anything from them other than more cowardice, and they have not disappointed. They have been cowards since the moment Joe Biden took office. But having said that, we cannot have America's governor, right, in the situation that he is. Like it's a distraction from the healing, right?
That's true.
It really is, and America really needs to heal. So if you're a problem for us now, Cuomo, you're not just a problem for the citizens of New York. You're a problem for the entire Democratic Party. You're a problem for the entire United States of America. So it's time for you to go. Plus, you've been there for like 10 years, right? Term limits.
No, I think those are spectacular points, and the live chat seems to agree with you. So I think you kind of got me turned around. I'm sentimental. I thought he did a good job with COVID, but I forget what it was. Colbert had a whole bunch of hilarious things to say about that, but we'll move on. So, all right. So was there anything else? There's the insurrection stuff, but that's still playing out. I think at least the FBI and law enforcement is taking it seriously, and they're going after people, and I hope that continues. But it's tough to say where that's going to turn out. We don't know yet. So.
Well, there is one more thing that we can talk about, and I know it's on everybody's mind. It's the talk of Tinseltown. It's on everybody's lips. Everybody's tweeting about it. It's all over Facebook. It's all over the news. Hell, it's probably in China at this point. Everybody's got an opinion on it, even if they don't got an opinion on it. And of course, that is whether or not Meghan Merkel is telling the truth.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many of you watched the interview. I did. I love royal drama. I'm not even going to pretend like we don't have a royal family in America, so I live vicariously through the British monarch, and I always have, right? And I love Meghan Merkel. I have loved Meghan Merkel ever since. I've loved Meghan Merkel for like 10 years at least. So I first became aware of Meghan when she had a small part on a TV show called Fringe, and for whatever reason they did not continue her part, which was very sad. And then she did some other things, right? And then of course, so I want to first give a little bit of credit to Oprah. Girl got it. I mean, she is like that. We need a law right now All future presidential debates moderated by Oprah, right? Period. She is on it, right? I
She is.
mean, she sat back in that chair and she's just like, you may be the Prince of England and you may be the princess of whatever, but I'm Oprah and you are going to tell the world what I want to know. And she did, and it was a masterclass in how to make people comfortable and get them to talk about shit they don't really want to fucking talk about, right? Um,
Yeah,
and so of course she said, so I mean, think about how we want to live in a time in which we want to believe, right? We will have people on the opposite end of the spectrum that's generally represented on this show who want to have this idea that, racism, it's not really a thing. It's really not, right? Like, and
yeah.
all you liberals and progressives that are crying about microaggressions and safe spaces and Black Lives Matter and racism. No, it's really not a problem, right? It's not. It hasn't been in a long time. Meghan Markle looks like a slightly tanned white woman. Okay. She is married to one of the whitest people I have ever seen in my life. And there was somebody in the royal family who was worried that the baby might be black. In what world was that baby going to be black? Have you not seen Meghan Markle? Have you not seen her husband? And the fact that they were worried about that, the fact that that she received no security for the baby, the fact that she was just kind of let out here, right? It's gross. It's the fact that our paparazzi is preferable to their paparazzi shows you just how disgusting the paparazzi is to begin with. But I don't know about you, and I don't know if you watched the interview, Nick. But
I
my
picked
heart,
up some highlights. I wanted to watch it. My wife and I both wanted to watch it, and kids, we get there's life, but
I'll tell you
I picked
this.
up highlights and yeah.
There was a conversation that took place in a chat room that I was in, and they were going, oh, poor Meghan Markle, pure, poor Princey this, pure princess that, you're millionaire, blah blah this, blah blah. And you know what? I watched that. I watched that interview, and all I saw was a scared mother trying to protect her children, right? And there are people who have this idea that if you have money, you can't have problems,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's just not true. It's never been true, right? But people like to scoff at other people to make themselves look better. And I mean, my heart went out to her. And it just proves that we are not in any way, shape, or form over racism, right? The constant just deluge of microaggressions that come from both sides. We're all guilty of it, right? Whenever you said, "Where are you really from?" Right?
Yeah.
Whenever somebody and you know what? Black people, because I don't just want to bash on white people here. Black people in the audience, and I'm not talking necessarily about the audience that's watching us right now, but just the broader audience, y'all guilty of it too. Okay? If y'all have ever checked your baby cousin's ear, like looking to see if it's, if it's going to be a light skinned baby or not, you're worried about skin color too, right? This is something we all need to deal with, and I'm glad this interview happened. I'm glad that this royal garbage was brought to the shores of America because it gives me the opportunity to address very real social issues that are happening in our country, right? And above all that is the idea that no matter what situation you find yourselves in, depression is real, Mental health is important, and suicide should be taken seriously at all times. And when someone says that they are suicidal, we should take that seriously. And we should not ever scoff at it. And we should never worry about the color of a baby's skin in regards to how we treat it. And the fact that we have to have this conversation in 2021 is, to me, a little sad, but it does give me a soapbox to kind of rant about for a little bit. So I wanted to bring that up.
Well, thank you. I think that was very worthwhile, and I think for anyone who hasn't seen the highlights, I think it definitely, and the notion that, of course, she had sought mental health counseling, and I think they called it the institute. Was that what they called it? The said no, she can't, and she was basically denied at every turn by the Royals, and it must have put her husband in a bit of a bind, because it's the family he grew up with, it's the royal family or his wife, and they are putting him in a place where he has to choose. And I think he did very well by that choice. But nonetheless, it sounds like yeah, I think that's a worth. So thank you for bringing that up. And thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
All right.
This has been what grinds my gears.
All right, so my name is Nick Soutter. Welcome to What Grinds My Gears with Vox Publius, and today we're going to be discussing the. All right, well, I think
that's all I've got
okay.
for tonight, Nick. So I'm going to turn it back over to you and let you.
I think that just about does it. So thank you all for joining us. I will be in the Discord later. I don't know, Vox, are you going to be able to make the Discord tonight?
I think so, for a little bit.
All right. Perfect. So I will be in the Discord in just a few minutes. But until then, I think that is the news for this week, and we look forward to seeing you, barring any breaking news, seeing you guys for In Time on Tuesday. This is Nick Soutter. Thank you all for joining us, and we will catch up with you soon.